So in this video, we're going to be adding a camera to the scene in order to be able to send images from CoppeliaSim into MATLAB for image processing. Now, if you go to add, we can notice two things that we might think we need, either the camera or the vision sensor. So what's the difference between the two? So if we click on camera perspective type and we zoom out, this is the camera that has been added. If we double click on the camera properties, we can see that we can adjust the perspective angle or the near and far clipping planes and a bunch of other properties. If we add a floating view and we say associate view with selected camera, we can now look at what the camera is looking at. So let's point the camera downwards by rotating it 90 degrees about the x-axis. So this is what the camera is looking at. So basically this camera is almost like a window to observe the simulation, just as how we are looking now at the simulation from the default camera point of view. So technically we are inside the default camera looking at the simulation. This camera does not really represent cameras in real life because it doesn't have a resolution, it doesn't have limitations. So what we're going to be adding now is a vision sensor of the perspective type to notice the difference. So if we double click on vision sensor, we can see here that we can also adjust the resolution of the vision sensor, along with the same properties of the camera as well. We can also, so let's also now change its position so that we can observe the objects from above. First, we are going to translate it to the center and then shift it upwards as such, and now we're going to rotate it downwards as such. So now if we create another floating view, and now we can associate this one with the selected vision sensor, we can see that no image appears here because the simulation is not yet running, so technically the vision sensor is not yet working. So now when we run the simulation, we can observe the image that is being captured by the vision sensor. We can also perform image processing on this image from these scripts, but what we're going to do instead is we're going to send it to MATLAB and do any image processing on MATLAB because it's easier and quicker. Let's also try to change the resolution just as an experiment. So I'm just stopping the simulation. Let's say I change the resolution to 10, for example. And let's say I change the angle here to 40. We can see now as I click 40 that these lines are gonna go narrower as such. So now this is what the camera is looking at. Obviously the resolution is pretty bad because it's very low. Switching to the MATLAB side, we're going to be adding a few lines of code in order to capture the image from CoppeliaSim. The first thing that we need to do is we need to obtain the object handle of the vision sensor. So I'm just going to add a section called get handles because all the object handles for all the objects in the scene, we only have to call them once at the beginning of the MATLAB script. So we're just going to have an allocated section for that initialization. We're going to be using a vrep function called simx get object handle, and for that we need the ID of the simulation and the name of the object that we want the handle of. Now this name has to exactly match the name on CoppeliaSim as well, so if we make a change to the name there, we have to readjust it here as well. And we are going to be using this operation mode, one shot wait, which means we only have to obtain this variable once. Now in a different section, we're going to be capturing the image, get image. for this function we need the output, which is going to be the error in case we get an error, and also the camera handle, so the vision sensor handle. We're just going to call it camera on MATLAB because it's more intuitive. Now for getting the image, we have three outputs, which are the error, the resolution, and the image itself. And then we're using a function called vrep.simx get vision sensor image 2. For that we also need the ID, and then we need the camera handle. And then the options we're just going to set as 0, and the operation mode we're going to use one shot as well, one shot wait as well. SimX. So now let's test it by showing the image that we're capturing and then pausing for a bit. So now going back to the CoppeliaSim side, we are going to first delete this camera because we don't need it, and then we're going to revert the resolution back to a higher number. Obviously it doesn't have to necessarily be a square. The resolution doesn't have to be equal on both X and Y. So we will consider changing it later as we add more objects to the scene. And now we run the simulation and we go back to MATLAB and we run the MATLAB side from here. We have an error, sorry, missing comma. So we run the MATLAB and here is our image. Here's the image that we've obtained. In the next video, we're going to be adding some MATLAB functions and scripts in order to do image processing on the image and be able to eventually detect where the cubes are and what color they are.